Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. This is Draft Day Sports College Basketball 2019. It's episode number 63, and it's an off-season special. So it is now late June. We're just getting into recruiting, so that's what we'll open up with. So before we get there, though, review of last season's class rankings, recruiting rankings. We finally got into the top 10. We've been in the top 25 a couple times. We've never been top 10, so that's a first. Nevada, Michigan State, Oklahoma were on the top, and that's going to really give us some momentum going forward. The 2031 Pro Draft, small forward out of Georgia Tech goes first. Couple centers, UCLA, Miami. These are all the teams I play against. Udonis Cougar goes 26th overall, and in the second round, going 43rd is Derek Kennedy. So I do get two guys into the draft. That's awesome. But that also means those two players no longer with us. Now let's start by seeing what we need. What do we need? Well, right now we have perfect balance. 3 players at every position. Our 2 walk-ons are a small forward and a center. But scholarship-wise, what's going to happen? Who's going to leave? Well, Morrison's going to graduate this year. Tim Thomas is going to graduate this year. So that's 2 point guards going out. We definitely need 1. Yeah, maybe 2. Jerry Smith, graduating. So we also need a shooting guard. Nigel Porter, graduating. Need a small forward. No power forwards are graduating. And actually only 1 will be a senior next year with 2 freshmen this year. So power forward is not a need. And at center, Justin Smith, the only one. So we have 5 scholarships ready to offer for next year. It's 2 point guards and no power forwards with 1 of the others. So with that, let's see if anyone has any interest. I don't know what's happened because this used to show up. This used to show up as something. But no longer. And so let's go ahead and take the blank, and we're going to go position by position. We're going to take a couple of extra point guards, as that's going to be a big need. So we're going to take like the top 15 point guards available to us. And I'm going to hit the shortcut key for this one for a change. Okay, that's number 62. Get 1 more in there. For once, I'm actually using the shortcuts, and it's amazing how much faster it is. On the shooting guards, we only need 1, so I'm not going to go as far down. Go down into the top 50 only. Small forwards. These guys do go a little bit further down. These guys are regional. Maybe I'll bring them in as well. Skipping power forwards. No. Not skipping, but we're going to kind of skip. We're going to skip as long as there are no players from Oregon in the top 50. Wow, there's actually not even that many power forwards that are in the top 50 anyway, so it's a really bad year for recruiting power forwards. Good for us that we're not having to do so. That's it for the top 50. That's only 7. I'll give myself an 8th at least. Now that's a healthy number of players that I've picked up. We've got a couple JC guys. But you can also see we have a really small budget, especially if you're trying to pick up 5 players. So I did not take any, what do you call it? Any camps or scouting packets. So we're going to have to do that work ourselves. We open with film. And Simmons, our first call, hangs up on us. Our second call, Monroe, the center, we get through and we get a full unlock. Nicely done. Okay, school prestige obviously is huge, but conference prestige is equally big, meaning he can be recruited. And with him from Kentucky and both parents from Western Kentucky, does it help at all that I was stationed at Fort Knox, Kentucky when I was in the Army? Anything? Yes? Not falling for it. Ooh, nice. Okay, well that used all our call time, but we got through to our third guy. So second and third, we break through. I like it.
You have new mail.
Now this is of course going to really open things up right away, as we're going to eliminate quite a few as we get an idea of their GPAs. Just how bad students some of them are. Alright, so we are going to move on down the list. A little bit of a purge. Anything under a 2.8, go bye-bye. .8, not even sure how he played basketball in high school. Community college? No? No, it's not. Not a JC transfer. Tricked me for a second. Losing a whole group here. Okay, JC sophomore would transfer. So 2.5 is okay for those players. Anything less than that, I'm worried that their grades just wouldn't hold up at our level. Like this guy. We'll let him go. Okay, back to the top of the list. Let's go ahead and update this before we go any further. We got double plus interest in Ross, number 45 overall, out of Nevada. Number 12, small forward, so we definitely don't want to come that far down right off the bat and try to grab him, but we will go back to the... let's do call list first, since that's the page we're on right now. Try again. Simmons still hangs up on us. Did get parent info out of one of our coaches, and they have a lot of influence. Facilities are big, so we can recruit based on that, though it won't be the easiest. This guy would be a tough grab. I mean, anybody top 10 right now is going to be a tough grab for us, but... Okay, let's see. Start from here on the watching film. Please don't crash. You look like you want to crash. There you go.
You have new mail.
Second time. Still on summer camps.
You have new mail.
There we go. Now we finish the week off.
You have new
recruiting. By the way, we're going to start this season with a preseason rank of 16. And again, after the last season was the first time we were ever ranked in the preseason rankings, but it was outside of the top 20. I don't remember where exactly we were, like 23rd or something like that. So 16th is the continued recognition that we are a team that can compete. So that's a big step in that right direction. Now, since we had the dismal performance at the NCAA tournament, let's get into Ross now. 3 pluses on him. That's 30. It's just about 10 more after that. So we've got about 40 left on our list. So that should be a pretty good list for us. We should be able to get our hands on most of those guys. Well, I mean, we should be able to get 5 out of that. Number 1 guy just keeps hanging up on us. So does the number 4 guy. Number 5 guy, one of my coaches got through to him because I think he hung up on me last time. School prestige, playing time, the only things that he's going to go for. And that is not going to mean us, especially for a top 10 player. So we'll just go ahead and wipe him off the list. now so we don't waste our time.
You have new mail. You have new mail.
The list is looking a little better, especially down towards the bottom end. A lot of players now with at least a little bit of interest. Finally, this top player decides that we're persistent enough to not hang up on us. Give us a chance. And we get it all. Let's see. School prestige, location, facilities. The school prestige is the big one. Location, Tennessee, that doesn't do us any good. Facilities is the only thing we could pitch, and it's a bit low. It's a bit off. I do not think this would go well. So let's go ahead and we'll wipe him off our list. We also get through to the number 4 guy. We're out of time. School prestige is his big one, but we'll see if there's something else comparable. By the way, I don't know what the official release date is. There is no official release date. The game's out in beta right now. It's being worked on. Developer, Gary's doing what he can with it, and when it's ready, he will release. It's that simple. There is no release date. But Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball is going to be coming on full release soon-ish. When it does come out, I will be starting a series for that one. Officially, it's replacing the college football series just because even in the middle of football season, that series just never took off. It didn't get the views that I was hoping it would get. So as a result, it's time to move on. That's the one officially replaced, though Football Manager has already taken its spot on my list. So at this point, I'm looking at my F1 2019 series as the one that technically Football Manager is replacing. But keep an eye out. Near future, there should be another basketball series, this time a pro basketball one. And instead of taking my beloved hometown Portland Trailblazers and only catering to one group of fans, going to be starting a fictional Seattle franchise who very much have long deserved to get the team that they were promised back. If you don't know your story with that one, if you don't know your history of that, so the Seattle Supersonics were one of the most popular teams in the league, and through the 90s and into the early 2000s were one of the most successful teams in the NBA through that era. And it's like we are now under 40 on our list. I have taken away a couple of those top 10s, plus it was 39 watch films, so I'm thinking we're at about 37 on our list now. So our first wave of recruiting will be done. We'll wait until the end of July to get our second wave of scouting reports. And we've already used our call time.
You have new mail.
Okay, it should mostly be camps. Yes, it is all camp info. Anyway. Oh, let's see. What year? Somewhere between 2006... 2008-ish. Okay, sorry, I do not remember what year it was. Well, let's see. Let's do a little math. It would have been before that. It's closer to 2003 or 2004. which would make more sense because I would have been back home out of the Army in 2003, headed off to college in Eugene, 2004. Right. All right. Now, right around that period, the Sonics had just recently, a couple seasons prior, been in the Western Conference Finals. But then things kind of fell apart, and they slipped all the way to out of the playoffs. And at the same time, the Portland Blazers, the Trailblazers, went through their own crisis, and they went through the Jail Blazers era where everybody and their freaking mother on that team was getting arrested. Most of it was drug possession. Some of it was DUI. So it was pretty minor stuff in terms of as far as arrests go. But it was bad enough that the team picked up that reputation that they were nicknamed the Jail Blazers. So I and a lot of people were still fans of the team but couldn't stand to watch the team. That was a very typical reaction of a lot of people around the Northwest. Seattle had been through Sean Kemp and many other talented players in that recent era. And had a lot of fan support. School prestige is all you like. Okay, you're out. Look back at the other guy that we just finished off. He likes a lot of things. So yes, he is recruitable. Finally outside of that top 10. So
You have new mail.
Anyway, in that 2003 to 2004-ish range, both teams put together a really bad year. For the Blazers, it was time to gut the roster and clean it up, and they were very outgoing about their attempt to do that.
New mail.
Before I skip another week here, I need to actually do my recruiting. So they were cleansing, and meanwhile Seattle was just, everything had gone wrong at the wrong time. And somehow they ended up with the first and second picks of the draft. Portland was going to go first, Seattle was going to go second. Now, of course, a lot of people know this story of what happened in that draft. Greg Oden, big man of the future. He was the Zion Williamson of the time. He was your almost instant superstar and was going to be your center for 15 years or longer. And he was the player who was going to take you to championships. Meanwhile, you had a identical choice at small forward in Kevin Durant, who was going to score tons of points and also just be a fantastic player. But they weren't certain whether he was going to take you to championships or not. And as was the case of the era, players like Akeem Olajuwon and David Robinson, those were the kind of players that were getting you championships, not small forwards. Right? It wasn't Scottie Pippen that won you championships. It was Michael Jordan. And so, again and again, the argument back and forth between those two players went on and on. And Oden seemed to be nothing universal about it. I mean, this is really split 50-50. But ever so slightly in favor that Oden was the right move for the Blazers. 52 or 55-45 kind of a split. So the Blazers draft Oden. He ends up hurt. He ends up barely playing. And in his first 3 seasons, he combined to play right about 82 games. I'm still out of call time. I thought I already went through this. Right about 1 season worth of games. Now, over that stretch, and through those injuries, he was not the dominant force. However, he showed the potential that he would be that dominant force, but the injuries were just horrendous. Stunted his progress and absolutely destroyed what could have been something huge for Portland. Meanwhile, Kevin Durant went to Seattle. And he played in Seattle. 1 season. 1 season with the Seattle Supersonics. And then, at the end of that season, the owner of the Sonics, don't ask me to name who that was. Sorry, I cannot pull that name out of my rear end. But, over the course of that season, drama ensued. By the way, the Sonics were back to being pretty solid that year, and Kevin Durant was on to have the kind of career that he was about to have. And lived up to that name, that title. But the owner was demanding that Seattle build him a new stadium. Now, the stadium was pretty shabby. It was definitely not ideal. Didn't quite have enough seats either. So it was a smaller stadium, older stadium, but it was far from the worst stadium in the league. Ooh, another case of the school prestige is all that matters to this guy, so he's out. So, not the worst stadium, but definitely not a very good one, okay? Now, what he was looking for was quite unrealistic and a bit more than was going on. There was a couple stadiums popping up that were pretty fantastic. And not so many years earlier, just under a decade earlier, right? Portland got their stadium, then known as the Rose Garden. So a lot of teams over the previous 10 years had put up new stadiums. Seattle hadn't come to terms with that. Now, City should have stepped in a little bit more, and they were willing to spend, but they weren't quite willing to spend enough to satisfy the owner. He didn't want to spend out of his own pocket to build the stadium at all. He wanted 0% funding from his own pocket. He wanted it all. Well, when that wasn't happening, during the course of that 1 year, seemingly overnight, he pressured the city, and the city
You have new mail.
budged. They adjusted. They compromised. But he didn't compromise. He didn't budge, and he didn't meet them in the middle, which is how negotiations are supposed to work. And seemingly overnight, the owner up and said that he was going to move the franchise to Oklahoma City. And everybody called his bluff and was like, you can't do that. You don't have the right to do that. And next thing you know, the season had just ended. Everybody kind of did a little farewell on the last game of like, is this for real? Is this really the last game in Seattle? And we still haven't gotten through to that guy. Or that one. And a couple weeks later, they were the Oklahoma City Thunder. Seattle cried foul, rightfully so, especially under the situation and everything that was going on. And the commissioner, who permitted the move without approval from the league, promised that Seattle was going to get a team moving there or an expansion franchise. Set a limit. I think it was 5 years. Can't remember that detail for certain. But set a limit that within X amount of time, there will be an NBA franchise in Seattle. Well, that window came and went a long time ago, and Seattle was so bitter from what happened that to this day, most of Seattle will not support the Portland Trailblazers. And it was not because of the rivalry between the two, and there was definitely rivalry between the two, but it was a healthy rivalry. There's healthy rivalries and there's unhealthy rivalries that are out there. There's bitter rivals. Portland's bitter rival, LA. Their healthy rival, Seattle. We hate the Lakers. I can't stand the effing Lakers. It's August. We need to get back into scatter reports. I've already used the call time. All right. Sorry. It's hard to keep playing and telling this story. Anyway, Seattle, with such a bitter taste over what happened and the promise that basketball was coming back to Seattle, they said, well, why would I change allegiance and become a Portland fan now? So Trailblazers games aren't even shown in Seattle. My own parents, who retired and moved to the coast, closer to Portland than Seattle, but their cable provider is Seattle. They can't get Blazers games. It drives them nuts. Or at least my dad. My mom's content. You know how that is. But to this day, right? They're still in that, okay, where's our team mode? And they've just, most of them will not watch the NBA at all, though many are still fans. You walk around Seattle. Now, I'm a Mariners fan, and I have Mariners gear, and I've been to many Seattle Mariners baseball games over the years. But if you walk around Seattle, you are just as likely to see somebody in Sonics gear as you are to see somebody in Mariners gear these days, as much as the Mariners have struggled in recent years. So it's not like the fandom has gone away. Just NBA support is not there until they get their franchise back. I'm going to bring that franchise back with that series. And the team that should have gone there and almost went there a few years ago, and then a little false irony shows up here when the reason why, at least the closest Seattle's gotten to having a team again, the reason why they don't have a team right now was my favorite player as a kid. Now, I know I've said I'm a Portland Trailblazers fan, and believe me, I am. I love Lillard, especially the current group. I watch them all the time, but as a kid, I did not always live in Portland. I actually lived in California when I was quite little. I was born in Portland, but I moved back there. So I was away for a while, and I was away at some of those formative years where you first really get into sports and identify with them. What's the last guy that I left off with? Badu. Sorry. Need to commit that name to memory here as I go forward. Badu, not Erica. So, and I've already used the call time. All right, then let's move forward. During those formative years, I was near the Bay Area. So, certain franchises got my attention. The 49ers and the Raiders. And my allegiance followed Jerry Rice. So when he moved, my allegiance moved. I was a Raiders fan ever since. I don't support the NFL these days. Too many things, too many corrupt things have happened in that league. Not to say that other leagues are free from corruption, but that league is the worst of the worst, and I drew the line. And that league very much, especially after Deflategate, the Saints, Rice, Roethlisberger, that period, I drew the line with all of those incidents, all in the same year. I mean, ugh. Anyway. The A's got my attention for a while, but eventually I became a Mariners fan after moving up north, especially after seeing them play a number of times. But it was not the Warriors. Sorry. The Warriors did not get my attention. If you know your history, the Warriors have never done anything until a certain Steph Curry came along. They were not a well-supported team, especially outside of the actual Bay Area. And I was a little bit outside. I was in Fresno. More than a little bit. Let's see. Badu is the last guy, but I'm still on call list. Let's go down the list. I have call time. Sorry. Trying to keep things moving here. At the time, I got into the NBA. The Warriors didn't get my attention. Who did? Well, it came down to a play style and a uniform color. I liked the uniform color. Why? I don't know. I was a kid, okay? The uniform color had an impact on me. But the Phoenix Suns, they got my attention. For one, I lived in a state that, we got a lot of sun, and it was still regionally relative to me. But Charles Barkley, Kevin Johnson, Dan Marley, Dan the Man, all right? That was what got my attention. But myself, as I grew up, I moved up to Portland, and I had dual allegiance. I started supporting the Blazers early on, local team, and they were really exciting through the 90s, so it was a great team to support. But I still held allegiance with Phoenix at the same time. The first time I ever saw the Blazers play, they were playing Phoenix. I was literally in the back row. All I had to do was lean my head back and touch the wall. Cheap seats. But it was against Phoenix. I was wearing my Phoenix sweatshirt, and I was screaming like crazy. And a lot of people were looking at me going, oh, come on. After that, though, slowly but surely, I transitioned to being a Blazers fan. Especially as the players that got my attention. Barkley, Johnson, Marley, AC Green, as they all moved on, retired, whatever. I was eventually done with the Suns. But even to this day, I'll still check box scores of Suns before I'll check the box scores of most other teams. So that's still a thing, right? But Kevin Johnson, for me, I was a point guard. I was the smallest kid in my school. Very athletic, though. But I was the smallest kid. So I played point guard. Kevin Johnson was my guy. He was the one who got it done for me, more than Barkley. He was the mayor of Sacramento. Did you know that? Mayor of Sacramento was Kevin Johnson just a handful of years ago. And just a handful of years ago, Sacramento, well, they had a period where the team was decent for a while. But that period was gone. They had a period where they had fans. That period was long gone. They were about to lose their franchise, and they were about to lose it to, you guessed it, Seattle. But their mayor, ex-NBA star Kevin Johnson, he wasn't having any of that. No, he was not. He decided he was going to save basketball in Sacramento. Sucks for Seattle. I was so torn on this one because I wanted Seattle to get their franchise back. And, I mean, come on. Nobody was going to the games in Sacramento, so it's not like they actually were invested on the matter. But then all of a sudden, here's Kevin Johnson, my favorite player once upon a time. And I was really torn on that one. I didn't know how to react to it. In the end, Johnson won. I've got just a little bit of call time. Da-da-da-da. There we go. Give me one thing. That's it. It's something. Mid-August. Recruiting coming up September. We're not far away. A lot of talent. I actually haven't even really looked through my list normally because we're so high up. I do have a few Bs outside of that top 55, so these guys are last-ditch effort kind of players. But that's where we're at. Anyway, Johnson won that battle. Saved the franchise. Sacramento got a new stadium. Fans came out 2 or 3 years. They came out and supported the team for 2 or 3 years. I think their attendance is really dropping again, though. So, not sure how long that's going to last. But completely, totally interesting stuff. Meanwhile, Seattle has still gotten a giant royal FU from the league. They're still bitter. So, again, one final time, be sure to check out my upcoming series on Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball with a Seattle franchise back in it. It'll be a little awkward for me as a Blazers fan to not be the Blazers, but it's happened before. There's so many times where I take a game and I want to build from the bottom. So football games, I don't play as the Oregon Ducks. I don't play as a team that's already preseason top 10 favorite or top 15 favorite, whatever. And I don't often do it with the Blazers. So if I want to play a baseball game, you bet your bottom dollar I'm going to be the Seattle Mariners. Makes sense. They suck. But the Blazers, they might not be one of the elite teams. It's a small market team. But dang it, they're good. They're exciting. Lillard and McCollum, hell yeah. Zach Collins, poor guy, freaking dislocated his shoulder, out for 4 months with surgery. That's really hurting the Blazers for this season. They're having a rough start to the year, especially as their other big guy, he's out for at least a few months. So Nurkic will be back. It's weird. A couple seasons ago, I was like, Nurkic, let's get him out of the city. Come on, he's got nothing. He doesn't play defense. And all of a sudden, he played defense. It was amazing. Last year, what an emergent year for him. He really was having an outstanding season before he got hurt. But anyway, that's going to do it for this episode. Be sure to check out that series, and this series continues, at least for now. I think I need to win a championship soon because I have a feeling this series doesn't have much life left in it. 1 season, 2 seasons, 3. I don't know. We are drawing to a conclusion, and I sure hope that conclusion comes with a national championship before the end. Dang it, we are so flipping close. Alright, well, I'll see you next time. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Bye for now.